You're watching Medfield TV, Community Shows.
All right, we just came out of executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body. All right, so we'll just jump right in, and do we, the approval of the minutes.
I move that we approve the, oh wait, do we want to do public input first?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes. Sorry.
Oh, we're going to do public input in two phases, and that is if we can save any public input regarding school choice for the school choice section, and so any public input? No. Thank you. All righty. Now we can go on to the
I approve that we, I move that we approve the minutes of April 2nd, 2018 and April 30th, 2018.
second.
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful. On to new business. Dr. Marsden, school choice?
So we have school choice hearing and vote, so this is an opportunity for anyone that wants to speak on the topic of school choice. In your packet, you have a memo from me that is my recommendation of not participating in school choice. I also...
Should we have public input first?
Sure,
Oh,
sure, you can
yes,
do that.
sorry.
Have public input first.
Does anyone have public input regarding school choice?
No.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Sure. So in your packet, there was a memo from me regarding school choice. Also, I dug up a 1994 agenda, which was interesting to look at, but showed that the district has always done it in a way that we have school choice as an action item, and that's been many, many years, many school committees and many superintendents. So just want to put that in there for your perspective on that. So you want me to share what I have in here?
Please,
Okay.
Please do, yeah.
So I will once again recommend against Medfield participating in school choice. In the 25 years of its existence, Medfield has never participated in the program. School choice is not a good financial idea for Medfield. Our most recent per pupil expenditure was $14,325, or $1,220 below the state average. For every student we accept through school choice, we'll receive $5,000. Essentially, we'll be subsidizing $9,325 for every student that does not live in Medfield. Given our current FY19 situation, we are trying to provide an adequate education for Medfield students, not students from another town. In addition, when a student is accepted through the school choice program, they are entitled to stay in district until they graduate or age out in special education. The siblings of the accepted students are also entitled to a Medfield education for $5,000 a year. School choice also creates educational issues for Medfield. As you know, classroom space for Medfield students is an issue. Adding non-Medfield children is not fair to our kids. I was notified this week, this was sent last week to you guys. I was notified this week that we are anticipating students from the Hospital Hill subdivision to enter our district in the 2018-2019 school year. This, coupled with a robust real estate market and pending 40B development, would further create space concerns. There's also philosophical and moral issues with school choice. Taking students from another district funnels money, not unlike charter schools, from one district to another. These enrollment declines cause sending districts to reduce staff and programs. Finally, a survey of other high-achieving and wealthy communities found that only one of the top 20 wealthiest communities participate in school choice. These communities, like Medfield, value and support their schools. They are proud of their schools and don't want opportunities taken away from Medfield students for a $5,000 a year payout. This is especially true when the average tax bill in Medfield is currently at the $10,000 mark. So school choice is not the right decision in my mind, and I urge you not to participate in the program.
Comments?
No, I mean, I think I can say, honestly, the math simply doesn't work. I think that sometimes when the math works for school choice for a district, it works on an economy of scale. But again, my philosophical feeling is, and I know that I've spoken to Dr. Marsden about this, is that there's a cynicism to school choice a little bit, that we, to kind of make our own gains, would suck resources away from another district that could use it. And, I think that it's one of those things where school choice, can very easily, all of a sudden, through any amount of life circumstances, have a child that you are committed to educating for the next however long, and God forbid something should happen to that child in which we need to educate them in a way that is more expensive perhaps than what we would do on our kind of per pupil expenditure. And then all of a sudden that $5,000 doesn't seem like a very good bargain right now. So really, I think with school choice, it really doesn't make sense for us.
Yeah, and I suppose in addition to the reasons Dr. Marsden noted in the letter, I also feel that the, school choice, we want, I suppose I feel that the students that and families that are part of our system are part of the fabric versus just fillers.
Right.
And, so that's where I'm coming from, so I'm not in favor.
I think that the amount of children that we could have with school choice, and I'm glad you said that because it's something I've thought of. If we had a number of children who were able to come into our schools, the number of them would always end up being like, oh, you're that kid from that other town. You're that kid. And they're just really, our school population isn't necessarily always large enough that I would want to make sure that any child we chose to educate would have as positive a community experience
Exactly.
as we would expect of any of our children. But financially, it's just not a good choice, and there's nothing on the horizon that I've been able to find that would make me think that that $5,000 number is going to change.
Exactly.
Or if it does, incrementally so small that it's not really
Yeah.
going to apply, particularly in Medfield, given what kind of state aid we get.
Yeah. All right, so should we put this to a vote?
Do you have any?
I think you've all said enough about the space, and there's a little known fact, there's a lot of financing that would fall on Mike around school choice as well for every
Right.
student, because you do bill back all your sped services back to the sending district.
Right.
You have to
Which then
itemize
they
those.
don't pay us for.
And you have to itemize and everything else. It's pretty intensive, so.
It is intense,
um,
yeah.
And I'm here about space, so. I think we should move the vote.
Sorry?
I think we should vote.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to not participate in school choice for the FY19 year.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
All right, so the establishment of the theater revolving account.
So this is a great opportunity, I think, for our theater program to get away from having all of their funds put in a student activity account, which really limits their flexibility in terms of how they expend any of their money. It gets put into one big student activity account, and it limits them from able to spend those funds on personnel. The requisition of those funds is not as clean as it would be if it was in a revolving account. So I'd like to propose that we have a theater revolving account, or theater/drama revolving account, that has two different line items, one for the middle school and one for the high school. And then any funds that come in, whether it's ticket sales or anything that they get revenue on, goes into this revolving account. Then they'd be able to access that like they would any other budget item. So it's very different than what they have with the student activity account. It would allow us to have more flexibility with stipends of the theater folks. Also allow them to, when they build sets and have to purchase things, they could do it through that account instead of student activity. I think it's really a win-win for everybody. And the theater group has done a great job. We worked together on it, we collaborated, and it's just been great to work with them. So I would recommend that we establish that revolving account. And then Michael will do all the other stuff from there.
Okay. They currently pay activities fees to
Correct.
participate in drama, right? So would
Correct.
those activities fees also go into that revolving account?
Absolutely.
Or what portion? Okay.
Absolutely, yeah, it would all go in there.
Okay, great,
Yep.
thank you, I just want to be
Yep.
clear on that. I move that we establish a theater revolving account.
Second?
Any discussion?
Yeah, any discussion? All right.
The only concern is the extra work on Mike.
I think he's cool, they're happy.
We're good.
My Starbucks
We're good.
salutes you.
Yay, good. All right, people are happy. All right, school committee meeting dates for 2018, 2019.
Any concerns with those? Any conflicts or?
They-
It's very similar to
November
the
is
schedule we
light.
have now.
November and February are light because of the vacation
Right.
Yep,
weeks.
Yeah, so it's almost
and-
identical to what we've had the last couple of years.
Yeah,
So we can certainly add if we need to.
yep.
But the same schedule as far as a couple of months around budget season and, you know, all that good stuff.
yep.
All right, do we have a
But
motion?
it's pretty straightforward.
Motion to
Mo-
approve
Second.
proposed dates?
All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. All
Thank you.
right.
So the next item was the Student Activity Account Senior Award, so very similar to what we did at our last meeting, and that's because of the new student activity procedures that we put in place. So this was for the National Honor Society. So it's, yeah, I forget what the allocation is, I don't have it in front of me. Was it 3,200?
Yes.
3,200 for the for the National Honor Society.
Yep.
Which they're, oh, it's right here, okay, so, and that's Thursday night, so it would be great to have that.
All right, motion to approve?
Motion to approve the three NHS awards at $200 each.
Second?
Second, you got a second,
Second.
Leo?
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Leo said the meeting has to be 60 minutes tonight, so that's why we're moving along quickly.
All right, moving on, moving on.
All right, Spain trip.
So Spain trip, in your
Time for
packet, you had a
everything.
letter from Mr. Parga explaining the April 2019 trip to Spain, 10 to 12 days in the Madrid area. Also include a 5-day homestay, and folks are working on that right now. You had all the information in there that talks about what we're looking at, the company we're using, et cetera. Again, we just had a great April vacation with many
Yep.
trips and many kids having a great time. So very, very good learning experience and really pleased that everyone was home safely. But I can answer any questions on that. That's not clear in here, but if you could approve that, that'd be great.
So do we have a motion to
Yeah,
approve the trip?
motion to approve the spring, or April 2019 trip to Spain for the World Language and Culture.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
These
Thank
trips
you.
are great, and I'm so grateful that teachers take their time
Yes, very much so.
to run these, because they're,
Do we do anything with China?
Do
We just
do
came
anything
back.
with
we
China.
just went.
Okay.
Yes.
Just came back, yeah.
We have an exchange.
Oh,
Yeah,
excellent.
they just came back.
Bang boo. Yeah.
So they're looking also, just to put on your radar, they just came back from Italy, the art group.
Yeah.
And they're
And
looking
Latin,
at
yeah.
2020, doing a similar trip that has Italy and Greece. So try to tie in more of the architecture of Greece. So they're working on that right now, and that should be an interesting one. That'd actually be one I might go on. I might take the plunge on that one. So that
You
one
don't like
sounds
to
great.
fly.
I don't like to fly, but I'll fly to that one.
Wonderful. All right, some old business. Policy second reading, please?
If we could do the.
Oh, yes,
Yeah, that
yeah,
one.
sorry. I started that. All right, so other items since posting on May 11th. I'm sorry, but the timing was a bit off for us to correct the posting between this posting and the next meeting, but we'd like to discuss ratifying of the teacher contract, please.
Yes. So, Anna Mae was a part of the process, so she knows we had a really good collaborative process this time. It was the second time in this contract since in the last couple of years that we've used interest-based bargaining. Had a wonderful facilitator this time. It went very, very well. So we tried to be creative in terms of how we could set up the agreement for more than just 3 years, which is the legal limit. So we actually did 2 separate contracts. A 1-year agreement for 2018, 2019, and then a second agreement for 2019 to 2022, which takes care of 4 years now of our Unit A teachers. I'll go through some of the highlights of it. Just the compensation piece for 2018, 2019. You know, I think this is a real important piece as we go into the override, which the teachers really worked with us knowing that the financial situation wasn't optimal for us this year. So our teachers did a couple of things. One, agreed to a 1.75 increase, which is lower than the town departments. Town departments were all 2% this year. And then the real big thing they did on top of that was their step increases, they deferred them until day 91 of next year. So that saves the district almost $200,000. So that was a huge concession on their part because they understand what we're doing financially, and we want to keep jobs, and we want to make sure that everyone is employed next year. So that was year one, and that's that contract in terms of the compensation. For 2019 to 2022, in July of 2019, all steps will receive a 2% increase where, we did it through negotiations on all the comps, and that's pretty much a standard comp right now, 2%. July 2020, same thing, all steps receive a 2% increase. And then July 2021, all steps receive a 2% increase on day one of the contract and a 0.25% increase on day 91. Which makes that whole in the first year. So that last year of the contract would make them whole in the first year. We looked at their work year as well. So the work year has been for years 184. And what we've done the last 2 years, we tried to do some professional development where we did an extended release day that counted as 2 days for teachers. So instead of doing that, and we had some decent results with that. We worked to get the teacher's contract to 183 and not 184. So that essentially that's almost another 0.25% increase when you gain a day like that without losing pay. So we didn't change the pay scale, but we subtracted 1 day there. We looked at some of the issues, again, as part of interest-based bargaining around sick days. So there were some concerns that we had. There was some clunky language in the contract that's been there forever around sick time, so we wanted to clean that up, and we did that with the sick time language. It was a family illness clause, which really wasn't clear because it was written for family illness if there was someone who was bedridden in terms of someone deathly ill, so to speak. And it was then interpreted as when your kid was sick, you would take a family illness day, and that really wasn't the intent. So we really cleaned that all up. We also offer teachers half-day sick days, which they could never do before, which again gives them flexibility, certainly if they want to have a doctor's appointment or they have something in the morning if their child's sick or they have coverage in the afternoon. Gives them more flexibility there. Changed some language around the a note request from superintendent around consecutive or sick days. It used to be after 5 absences, which I've never asked a teacher ever for a note in my 5 years here. They felt really strongly that we could have it after 5 consecutive school days instead of just 5 absences. It didn't make sense to have it just 5 absences, so we changed that to 5 consecutive. In the temporary leaves of absence, we again gave teachers the option to do half personal days, and they can do that up to twice a year, which wasn't an option before, which again is just makes sense for our teachers to have that. And then when we looked at the additional days, if someone is really ill in their family, that the superintendent may grant additional days, which was not in the contract before. So we wanted to make sure that was in there. That was important. As you know, we worked for stipends in that subgroup for almost a year and a half now, looking at stipends. So in the 2018-2019 agreement, that 1-year contract, will increase stipends $105,000, and we've really focused on the academic stipends, and then faculty advisory will meet next year to look at all the other stipends as well. And we added those professional development days for next year instead of the job embedded days. And because those job embedded days are really teacher directed on what they're doing in the classroom with their students, we said that 2 of the 6 release days would be teacher directed and designed. So teachers agree to provide department chair or building principal with agenda in advance for each half day and end with minutes at the meeting's conclusion, just as a follow-up. So, giving them that autonomy that they had on job embedded days, now that we've taken most of those away. Looking at teaching hours, we just made some adjustments on part-time teachers. We looked at staff meetings. We made the staff meetings in September, December, and March, 45 minutes in length instead of an hour. We looked at our pay scale. We renamed the Master 60 to Master 60 CAGS. So if someone has a CAGS degree, a Certificate of Advanced Studies, they can now be in the Master 60 starting in 2022, which is certainly a benefit for our staff. And also, it gives some motivation to get the CAGS if folks are really interested in doing that. Some important things that we did with observation and evaluation, you've heard me rail against this for 5 years now. One of the things that was concerning when I first got here was that the district adopted word for word, the state evaluation and observation, which is very cumbersome, and, certainly we can do better than what the state put out there. So this will allow us, first of all, to take the observation and evaluation piece out of the contract. It's now 20-something pages in the contract, and then make it in an appendix. That's the first thing we did. The second thing we did was get a joint evaluation committee that's going to work next year on changing the observation evaluation approach for the district so that it makes sense for us. So we're not looking at 42 items and indicators. We're looking at the ones that matter to us. We've done some training with Teachers 21 with all the evaluators, and the union was a part of that as well. So taking some of the work that we did the last 2 years with that and apply it to observation and evaluation that makes sense from Medfield, not from the state of Massachusetts, quite frankly. We've been pretty good about that, even though the district adopted word for word that evaluation. We didn't do district determined measures, which was a requirement from the state. We didn't do student voice yet. All those things that the state was really kind of throwing out there for districts, we were kind of pushing back and saying we're not doing that, and we haven't. And I sat in a meeting with the former commissioner who passed away last year, and he said to about 5 or 6 superintendents, "You guys implement this the way you think will work for your district." That's all I had to hear, and because I think that was an important piece, working with the union and not putting all this demands on teachers that really there was no real basis for some of the DDMs and other things that they wanted us to do. So we did not do that. So that's a good change for us going forward. We established the Unit B, which has been something that we've been working on in our strategic plan too. So that's a real important piece. So those teachers that are department heads, no longer content specialists, we changed it to the department chairs, I think. Bonnie, department chairs? Is it chairs or heads? I think it's chairs. Whatever it wasn't content specialists. We got rid of that. So we decided to have that, so all the folks that are department heads or chairs that do evaluations are special education staff that are coordinators. All those folks that are evaluating Unit A are now going to be their separate Unit B, which is only fair to them, because it was a little weird having folks in the same bargaining unit evaluating each other. So we finally got that piece taken care of, and that was part of our strategic plan as well. We added an Appendix C. So there was a side letter of agreement that we had on the extended day for elementary school. We've now put that in the contract, so it's not just a side letter, it's actually part of that. And then one of the things that was a concern that we really couldn't solve in this contract, but we're going to look at to make it better, is the faculty advisory that we established in the last contract. We'll review the issue of specialists who are in shared staff that work in multiple buildings, to try to make sure they have adequate travel time, cleanup time, et cetera. So we're going to really study that next year and see how we can schedule that to make their lives a little bit easier. Especially difficult for those folks that go between elementary and secondary. Because of the starting times, it's really difficult. And we tried to, in the last couple of years, schedule secondary people in the secondary schools, but for instance, like Brent Evans, just can't. She works in all levels, so it's hard for that. So we're going to try to work to make their schedule more doable and more time to work within buildings. Because if they're traveling, sometimes that's not built in, and it should be. So we're working on that. But I think that's kind of the highlights of it. One of the things that we also added that was problematic on our end was if someone moved horizontally on the pay scale, say in October, then they would start getting their new pay in October. And that was problematic for us because you really couldn't predict. We got a sense from the teachers, like who they thought were going to move horizontally, but sometimes that would happen. Sometimes we get surprises. So this now alleviates that. So if someone moves horizontally mid-year, then they start that the next September instead of that fiscal year, which makes sense. So I think we accomplished a lot. Really good process. I know folks had mentioned that it's the first time in a long time that we'll have a ratified, completed contract before the end of school. So we're real happy about that. Not only one of them, but 2 of them, a 1-year and a 3-year. So.
I thought it was a very positive experience. There was a real spirit of collaboration between the teachers and the administration. It was an opportunity for teachers to understand, the financial constraints that we're under, and they And it shows, they're waiting to the 91st day for their steps and lanes, and we understood what their struggles were. So it was
No question.
it was such a positive kumbaya kind of experience, honestly.
We might have hugged at the end.
We did. And so I thought it was, I thought it was great. Very positive.
So I ask that you approve the memorandum of agreement as presented, which will then transfer into the two separate contracts, the 2018 and the second contract, the successor contract. I know we talked about an executive session, but if there's any questions that you have that you want to talk about, I'll certainly answer those.
No, we reviewed it. I move that we accept the teacher's contract and memorandum of understanding as written and presented.
Great.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye?
Yay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Now old business.
Now, old business.
All right. Policy second reading, please.
So we had the three policies that have been on our website since before the last meeting, the co-curricular and extracurricular activities, JJE, equal educational opportunities, JB, and equal employment opportunities, GBA. The real change on all of those was adding gender identity to those. We didn't have those in the older policies, so we need to make those up to date, like we did with the grievance and non-discrimination one a couple of years ago. So we wanted to make sure that those are up to date. And then we made similar changes in the high school handbook, which you'll see at the next meeting.
Right. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the second reading?
Would you
Policy
like to motion?
Yes,
Leo?
motion to approve the adjustments to the policies for the second reading.
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
I have a quick comment about this, is that when we accept a new policy, I think sometimes, just in general, at all of the school levels, maybe we can take a kind of a drill-down look on the things that we just do because we've always done.
Yeah.
Things around, dress policy on field trips, or, we now have all gender bathroom signs.
Right.
But they're stuck over the signs we ripped off. And to some extent, that kind of ends up making it look as though this could also be ripped back off. So
Mhm.
just kind of generally how we do what we say we do in the little areas.
How it's implemented.
Sure.
And how it's implemented. And I think that we do a great job in many areas. But just as we kind of look around and make a note in our physical space and in how we present ourselves, we want to make sure that we're
So you don't want the
doing
piece
that
of
the
duct
best.
tape plastered over it?
No.
Okay.
Maybe we'll paint around those, maybe it'll look nice.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jess. FY19 budget update, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in your packet, you had some potential reductions they're not my recommendations, but I think they're just things that we should talk about and start making some plans in case we do have a 3% increase for next year. So if we do get a 3% increase, and that means the override has failed on the 11th, we'll have to cut $1,043,521. So in your packet, I had a list of payroll and non-payroll reductions that I'll go over with you. And again, this isn't my recommendation, it's just we have to start somewhere when you have $1 million. So I'll go through the payroll first. 1 FTE memorial classroom teacher, 2 FTE Wheelock classroom teachers. So we were slated for 3 additional ones at Wheelock. That takes 2 of those away. Wheelock World Language teachers, 1.5 FTE. So if you look at the classroom teachers and the world language teachers, it's a wash in terms of the money. So I think, you take a look at that. We may have to make a decision of one or the other at some point. Again, not making a recommendation, just trying to get that $1 million that we're looking at here. There's really no great solutions here. Dale Street classroom teachers, 2 FTE, which are the 2 additional, the 1 for 4 and 1 for 5. Dale Street reading teacher, also a new .4 position. Middle school 6th grade cluster, that's 3 FTEs. You see that's 166,000. High school math teacher, .6, so that will increase class size in high school math. High school English, .8, same thing, it's going to increase class size a lot in high school. High school world language, .6, which would, we would lose a section and double up those classes so that you'd have mid to upper 20s in some of those classes. High school business, .3, so that would remove one section of one of the business courses and double those up as well. So you'd be in the mid-20s on those courses. And then director of curriculum, the 1 FTE. The director of curriculum secretary is not on the cut because we never put that back in.
Right.
So we cut that one and we just never put it back in. So these are positions that we put back in along the way here. So the total payroll reduction is $912,769. Now, as I go through this, I know it says on your copy, these suggestions are more than the 1 million, just to kind of give us an idea of what we can look at, but not, again, not set in stone and not a recommendation. Looking at non-payroll, elementary science curriculum at 30,000, security upgrades at 130,000. I know Leo had asked a question about the security upgrades, so that was really looking at cameras like we've done for the middle school and high school at the elementaries. Teacher requested cameras in the main hallways of the high school. Additional training for teachers so that one of the things, the feedback that we got was they want training in their home school. So we've done it before, and it was all at the high school because of the biggest space.
Yeah.
And they used high school classrooms, which was great for the high school teachers, but we could do some of that training in the individual schools. And then Chief Meany has some ideas that he thinks we should do that, we're not going to share publicly, but he, through a threat assessment, that he feels that we should change a few things. So, that gets it to the 130, give or take. We still don't have the hard numbers on the cost on a couple of those things, but that's what we had projected during the budget process. The computer replacement, this is really hitting the high school hard. This is going to take away the lab that they have for film production, and also looking at redoing the Chromebooks, so that won't happen. Professional development services, $30,000 there. So that pretty much will have to rely on other sources for professional development, whether it's Title IIA grant or looking at MCPE, who have been helpful in the past. And then the big one here with no number attached, and again, it's just a conversation point to throw it out there. We are not legally required to bus kids grades 7 through 12. There's no requirement to do that. We do that, but there's no requirement to do that. As you can imagine, the bus company isn't the easiest to work with, as you know from the history. We haven't gotten a number yet of what that would save. Looking at what we've projected on that would be something like 8 less buses. If we were doing not having 7 through 12, that'd be 8 less buses on a particular tier.
Would an option be to charge for the buses?
It would, but you're only going to get, I think, would we say, Michael, 60,000?
Between 60 and 70.
60 to 70,000.
There's
But
a
we're
certain
not-
max cap that we can charge, right? Is that, not that, yeah.
So that was looking at $1 a day, $180
Right.
per kid. That's what that was looking at. I mean, many places are $360
Yeah,
a
at
kid.
least.
Right.
I'm not, I guess, advocating for that, but I'm just, when you're looking at ways to
Yeah.
keep the mission going here, there are some things that aren't required, and transportation of 7 through 12 kids is one of them. And, we'd have to look at that. I don't know what the savings is going to be. As we've, the frustration we've had with the bus company the last couple of years, who knows? I
It'd
mean,
probably
in my
just
mind,
be
it's
the
going to
same
be a
amount.
lot, but
It probably will, because going from a 3-tier to a
Two-tier.
2-tier,
Two-tier
Ended up
was
costing us
not-
the same amount, so.
yeah.
which, this
Yeah.
is bonkers.
So the grand total on those reductions equal 1,132,769 without a number for transportation. So that's not included in there. So total non-payroll was 220 without transportation.
Jeff, so when people are looking at this from the outside, this would be a reduction off of the 6.16, correct?
Right.
So, so instead of like Memorial Teacher, if you had added, you're taking one away from whatever that additional that you were adding. Is that correct? Is that accurate? Maybe I'm messing that up. I
So you mean
apologize.
that-
My Clarendon hasn't kicked in. yet.
Right, so that one FTE then is the additional.
Is the one, there was one additional. Okay,
Right.
so that's
Right,
removing the one.
so that's,
what I meant, yeah.
one way to look at it is, other than the Wheelock World Language Teachers, that 1.5 FTE, the rest of those elementary aren't current employees.
Right.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. And then the secondary ones are all current employees.
Okay.
All right.
And I was gonna say, what kind of impact is that having at the high school? Finding a whole math teacher, as difficult as it is, finding 3/3,
Right.
2/3 of one is, just as difficult.
Yeah, I think it would be a situation where if we have someone that's not full-time currently in the math department, just bringing them up a couple of courses, to get them there. But you're right, it's not easy to find those folks to begin with. And when you're looking at fractional employees, it makes it even worse, so.
And then, of course, class size being a big part of the conversation.
Yeah.
This is obviously gonna impact at the lower grades.
Both, yeah,
and
both
yeah.
and
And the
middle
high
as well.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that cluster reduction, we talked about that
Yep.
in the beginning of the process, and, that makes those numbers at 23 to 25. The math, all the high school ones pretty much double a lot of their classes, so they'll be, bless you, so they'll be in the mid to upper 20s on those. And then, of course, the elementary, which we've been really trying to work on this budget season, that keeps them at the, 23 to 25 level, which is not, and that's without kids moving in, right? So that's a big concern. The kids are moving in at the elementary level, and, we're trying to be proactive in that area by adding those additional teachers, and now we're erasing that, so. And, you could say, why are we not looking at more non-payroll? I mean, I think if you remember, all the pages and the slides of non-payroll, we've cut already, right, and gone through that
And
process.
those didn't necessarily get added back within the 6.16 budget.
Correct.
It's not like we decided that we're just gonna kind of profitably spend and put more non-payroll stuff back in.
So that 4.86 from February, we made all those non-payroll cuts.
Right,
Most of those did not go back into the 6.16.
Right.
we put that into staff.
So this is so this is the additional, on top of that, when we look at the non-payroll stuff.
The computer replacement, is that impacting the one-to-one program here?
It is. Yeah, so they have computers right now that they're using with the film program that it just can't handle what our kids are doing with it. So we actually have some kids that are bringing their stuff from home to actually do some of the projects that you see out in the hall there, some of the graphic design things. So this has been on the request list now for 3 years. Robert has put it in here for an upgrade on the lab so that we can continue to offer those courses. We have a wonderful teacher who's doing great stuff and incredibly talented, engaging kids. We just need to give that person the tools to do this well. And that's what we've been trying to do. So that, it impacts that, and then it also impacts, the Chromebooks are at 3 years, so 3 to 4 years, we want to, do some of those, bring some of the 3-year-old ones down to elementary and middle, and have new ones for our juniors and seniors like we've been doing the last couple of years, so
We buy those outright or we lease those?
we buy those. Yeah.
Unrelated to the budget itself, and maybe it could be tabled for later, do we have a policy around the use of the camera footage that's filmed in the schools?
We do not.
Yeah, just
No,
curious about that.
no, we do not. Yeah, the only people that have access to that are Owen, who has the access out of his office. And then if the police want it, they have to go through us first, and we grant them permission to do it. There's no live feed in the police station. We've asked for that. That hasn't been agreed upon. In fact, in the next meeting, we have our MOU with the police department, and that was an area that we tried to put in there for a live feed that goes in from at least this school in the police department. Their staffing, it doesn't work.
In the event of an emergency, or
Right.
they can drive up and get access from the outside.
Right,
Kind of thing. Yeah.
right. So they can get an app on the phone like I have, and Michael, we can access that. They could do that, but we wanted it so that at the public safety, they would have up-to-date access, but it doesn't work at this point.
Just
Because
around-
of their staffing, not because of technology.
Sure, and just around this, do we use card access as teachers? to get
Yes.
to the-
Yep. So we added card access the last 2 years. So that was part of that initial $100,000 that the school committee approved and the town allocated 30, 30, and 40, for the capital.
Yep. That just pays for itself over time, if you've ever paid to rekey a building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
This is
that's,
painful.
yeah, so I mean, I don't, again, I'm not recommending this, it's just really an area to start having conversations about, and,
I'm sorry, I missed the public input, but Can I say something quickly as one of the vocal proponents of this?
Yeah, can you go up to the
I
microphone,
admit,
Renee?
yes. I promise I'll be quick. So Renee Howley, 3 Harding Street, you've seen me before. So just a couple of things. As someone who is mostly supportive of the 6.16%, I think what we need as a public to help push this through as an override, because I'm very concerned about it, quite honestly, in speaking to my peers, we need very clear outlines of what this means for class size. That's what's going to help pull this through for us. They're not going to understand cutting X teachers and what it means. People want to know what the class size is going to end up being. I also want to put out there that on the side, a member of the warrant committee reached out to me, and there is a process by which to appeal and fight this. So I think it would behoove the school committee to have a backup plan that is somewhere in the lines of that 4.92% we all discussed a few weeks ago that the school committee did not want to vote on because it got rid of the curriculum director, which you would also lose at the 3%. But I think having something more along that lines of 4.5 to 4.92 that we could go back with if the override fails will have a lot more public support in town.
So what was the mechanism? I'm sorry.
I don't have all the details yet. I've been told I would have to reach out to a certain person to
Yeah.
get that. I mean, we're obviously all hoping this passes, so I'm in the process of trying to get more information on that. But I think it's something we should have in the back of our minds to be thinking about, to have a backup plan.
It's a special town meeting in the fall is really what you do.
It would have to be
Yeah.
another one to help do that, yeah, but.
You do. Thank you.
I guess I can echo the questions I've been receiving is about what the impact looks like in a graphical form, you know, in solid numbers. So it would be very helpful to,
It's easy to do, and we did it for the other presentation, so
yeah,
it's
to
it's pretty easy.
disseminate
Yeah.
something on the website, you know, a one-pager of impact of, you know,
Mhm.
these cuts, this proposed, or I guess they're not proposed, discussed
Yeah.
points.
Sure,
So I know you're not, I know what you're saying on this,
Yeah.
but
we can do that.
Alrighty, any other discussion?
and maybe just around security, like cameras middle, cameras high.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
I've been asked that a few times. So,
There seems to be a member of the audience who is trying to figure out if she can stand up and say something about the budget in particular. You go ahead and, yeah, if Renee has, you go right ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yes.
I am Megan Glenn, and I and Jessica Kemp have already moved forward and formed a committee in support of this override and these questions 1 and 2 specifically. And any help would be appreciated in getting this passed. I'm obviously for it. I did want to make kind of a counterpoint to you, is that although, you know, I may be for it, you may be for it for different reasons, and that in driving home one certain point above everything else, I don't want to polarize anybody else in town that might not see that as the most important reason to support this budget. And so for Jessica and I, we really want to just be less, I don't want to say polarizing again, but I just, everybody should vote for the reason that they personally identify with in terms of supporting the override, and not just pushing forward one argument for it, or else people that it doesn't affect them in that manner are going to say, well, this doesn't affect me, so I don't care about the class size and the memorial programs because my kid's in high school. Well, there are reasons why high schoolers should support this, or parents of high schoolers. So if we just push forward one argument over every other argument, I think we might lose some people. So at least with this committee, and other people can do it other ways, we are just trying to say this is going to benefit our community, our kids, and the whole town. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Alrighty. Alright, moving on to donations.
So donations. I'd like to request a vote to approve the following donation. Dale Street School, $1,000 to Dale Street School gift account from Mr. Ray Sherlacken, husband of former Dale Street librarian Darla Sherlacken, to fund materials for the Dale Street Library.
Alright, motion to approve.
I motion to approve the donation from Mr. Sherlacken.
Remember that Mrs. Sherlacken passed away
Right.
4 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago now. So he's been still very active with us in supporting Dale Street Library, and comes and visits each year, so he's been great. So he
The
dropped
Dale
that
Street
off.
Library has just done a complete
It's a different
180
place.
It's
from
incredible,
where it
yeah.
once was, and it's in large part to
Mhm.
his donations as
support.
well.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only have 2 items. One, DESI Coordinated Program Review. So DESI is in district, they were in district today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. They have 2 members of their staff. One was at Blake today, and one was at Memorial. I met with both of them after, just to kind of touch base with them. Both had really good days. Really had great things to say about the district, the teachers, the kids. They love the culture of those buildings, so that was really positive. They're going to be at the high school tomorrow, and they'll be meeting with Gina Delon and I on Wednesday, I guess. So I think, the best thing, I've been through a few of these, I'm sure, Leo, you've been through them before, the CPR audits. I think, one of the things that I always noticed is that lots of times in years past, it was a gotcha, and it was all about compliance. I found this to be very collaborative and almost, we're here to just help you out. We're not here to just play gotcha, which has been a great change in the department. The last time this was officially done in the district was 2012. So there's been some changes in what they accept, like for instance, in the civil rights. In 2012, they accepted things like the school improvement plans for each school as a self-assessment. They no longer accept that. So there's been changes in the way they view things. So I'm sure that we're going to have some recommendations for improvement. They do every time. But so far, they were very positive today, and looking forward to the next couple of days with them. So it's every few years they do that in a mid-cycle review at the end of the 3rd year. So we'll see. We'll get the report at the beginning of next school year, once they're done.
Do they meet with parents?
They do.
They
Mhm.
do.
Yeah, so they have parent interviews, I think Wednesday. They told me they have some Wednesday. So we put out that press release, and then parents contact them directly. So also been meeting with the CPAC chair, which has been great, so.
I think I also received a survey specific.
In a survey as well.
Right, they
Right,
send out
in a
surveys,
parent survey.
right.
I know it's a hot button item for some people in the district, so
Yeah.
I'm sure they had an opportunity to survey. It's probably a very good way to get their voice heard as well as.
No question.
getting on that list.
No question. Show me a district where it isn't a hot button.
Right.
It's the extent to which we care for our children is what
Right.
makes us the most passionate.
Right. And then the informational items, because I'm on the board for the Educational Cooperative and Accept Collaborative, I'm required to give you a copy of the FY19 budget. Again, you don't have to approve anything, it's just an FYI to show you where we're at with those 2 collaboratives. 2 very different collaboratives, but certainly, their budgets are fairly clear in what they're looking at. Accept has had some issues around transportation, because that's their big thing that they do, and Michael also works with a Job Alike for Accept, and I know he's been helping them out. Michael also works on the Tech Collaborative committee that looks at food purchasing for our cafeterias, so they've done a lot of good work, and Michael's been doing that as well. So we're both very active in it. We think it's important to be a part of the collaborative. Whether you have a lot of kids there or not, it's just, you're a part of it, so you have a voice, and I think it's important to be on those boards and support them and actually attend the meetings. That's the key point. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
Alrighty. So our future agenda items would be the FY19 budget, the high school handbook, the MOU with the Medfield Police Department, Medfield 2021 update, year-end support organization recap, and school communication. Do we have any final statements?
Yes.
James.
Since we last met, Student Council has run three major events. First, we ran our sticky note wall. As you can see, if you're going out the main office, it's partially still up, where the Student Council wrote, with the Harmony Club, we wrote out compliments on sticky notes for each student and staff member in the school. So this was our second year doing it, and we got a really positive response each year. So we're going to look to keep doing that. Second, we ran our Teacher Appreciation Day. Special thanks to all our teachers. The Student Council, we wrote out thank you cards for each teacher, and we held a little ice cream party for the teachers after school. And thirdly, there's a new executive board for the Student Council, so we ran that election. So we have 7 new juniors for president, vice president, all those positions. The new representative to the school committee is Maddie Reddy. She will be at the next meeting, 4th. So I'm excited to bring in her. She'll do a great job. So that's second to last meeting for me.
Right.
So
Right.
things are starting to wind down.
So you'll be at the first June meeting?
Yes.
You'll
Yeah.
bring that in, okay.
After graduation.
After graduation?
Day after.
Yeah.
Yeah, we,
I'll be here.
all right.
You've been great. Thank you, James.
Thank you, James.
It's been a great time.
And it's amazing how he can really show off a white tux with white shoes. Bringing it back. Bringing it
It's a
back.
look. It's a look.
Oh, there's a lot of looks.
A lot of
Friday night.
Wow.
But I love that wall of compliments. It's just, it's beautiful.
It's a
It
good
really is lovely.
unification.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it is. It's wonderful.
There's no lip sauce in the menu.
They actually serve chicken parm, which feels with girls wearing $400 dresses, it's a hard meal to serve.
Right.
Ouch. Leo?
Any district?
Well, I told you I was going to take Chris Morrison's place on closing comments, but I'll refrain and I'll just say, we have a tough battle ahead, I guess. I'm glad that everyone's here and participating in the process for June 11th. I think it's going to be very important. And of course, please vote with your conscience, and our schools are extremely important to our schools. So. I mean, our schools are extremely important to our town. The Claritin's coming on.
All right.
I have a couple of things. First of all, the yearly elections for CPAC are tomorrow night here in this library, or the LMC at Blake? Okay. So yearly elections for officers, and also they're doing some changing of bylaws. And I think that CPAC is really an important organization, particularly next year as we are starting to welcome in a new director of student services. That should be a really interesting collaboration, and I'm looking forward to see what comes out of it. Also, we have school committee office hours on Tuesday the 25th, is that correct? From 7 to 8 in the library. So please come. There are 2 of us there, but never a quorum, and we just want to hear what you have to say if this is not a place where you feel like presenting.
Is it here?
No,
Oh,
It's
okay.
actually, I'm sorry, it's the library, 7
Oh,
to
the
8
town
at the
library, okay.
town
Yeah,
library,
Okay.
in the conference room. My
Okay.
apologies. And then I get to spend the day of Memorial tomorrow, which is totally great. I get to do half-day kindergarten and then half-day preschool in the afternoon. And I'll just be observing and planting grass, as far as I understand, and doing a bunch of stuff with the kids, so.
We'll send you a coffee at 3 o'clock.
Thank you. I'm gonna need it. Yeah, so, thank you.
super. I just want to thank our National Honor Society students for babysitting town meeting 2 nights in a row. That last night was a scramble. Very few people used it, but I loved having it as
Great
an
offer.
option.
Absolutely. Thanks for your help on that.
And those kids really rallied, so I'm very grateful to them. And I want to say a thank you to the teachers who lead all the April trips and all the trips and the music trip, and it's a lot of work. It's their time, but it enriches the students' experience outside the classroom tremendously, and it changes lives. So I'm very grateful.
It's a lot of work and a lot of responsibility.
Yeah,
No doubt
totally.
about that. Madam Chair, if I may, just in your packet was the ballot questions. So I just want to reiterate, I put that on Twitter, but once the campaign finance folks allow me to, or approve what I'm going to put out on my blog, I'll send it out there as well. As you know, I'm restricted on what I can do with overrides. But I just want to bring to attention ballot question number 1. Because one of the things that is striking there for folks is that Dale Street is not named in the ballot question. So it reads that dedicated permanent operational override to fund a capital stabilization fund specified in the article. So because town meeting established that stabilization fund on 43, Article 43, 44 then allocated that money to the feasibility study for Dale Street. So I think it's going to be really important for folks to get the word out that question 1 is really for Dale Street, even though it doesn't explicitly say Dale Street, that's what it's for. If you're looking down the menu of votes and you don't see Dale Street. So we'll try to get that word out as best that we can, legally can. But I think it's important to bring that up whenever we can do that. And I just want to thank our kids for another great prom on Friday night. It's wonderful to see them all dressed up and have a good time. And once again, very well behaved, polite, well dressed. Dancing is questionable, but it's all right. They had a great time, and they're a good group.
They are.
Fun to be around.
Speaking of proms and questionable dancing, I do know that the MCPE fall ball is also starting to sell tickets. Is it
Questionable
next
dancing.
Sunday? I think in the morning they go on sale, next Sunday morning. So watch for those. They're
And that
the
is at
hottest ticket in
Gillette.
town, and that is also at Gillette. So.
Return. All righty. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
You're watching Medfield TV, community shows.